Thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. Is that you coloring?
That's me.
Trying to keep yourself busy? Yeah.
There you got some folks over there too.
Yeah, go say hello. Hello. How are you?
Okay.
Nice
Oscar
to see you.
Garcia.
Oscar, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Hi.
Hola.
How are you?
Are you good? Good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Great.
One thing it's missing is the events. So if you want to write down a little note of when the upcoming events are, so I can announce it.
Yeah.
Bye. Hi, Luis. Hi, how are you? I'm David. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Look, just
What are you
like a
reading?
picture. You get a more winning smile.
Oh,
I
good.
gave you a little comment on your.
Oh, thank you.
page.
Thank you. What are you reading?
First one. John Cleese.
John Cleese. Okay. Don't know about that book. Yeah. Thanks for
So,
coming.
Are you
We'll have a.
related at all? You have
No.
a very similar smile.
Oh no, not related. Not at all. Well, thanks for coming. We're going to get started
Yeah,
and
great.
get you in and out.
Thank you.
Keep it easy for everybody. Oh, it's warm. I don't think I need this because it's going to be up there, right? I'll get started. Yeah, it's time, right?
Yes.
What's up? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Turn on.
No. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Buenas tardes. Thank you for coming to our café. Very much, John, for being here. I appreciate you being here. I want to say thank you for being here at our community coffee. Meant to be as informal as possible. Because this is about what work am I doing for the community in my job that I have in Sacramento, where I spend most of my time during the year. So thank you all for being here. And also, if you can join me in thanking our host, Ryan Brothers, and we have somebody from the family here, so I want to thank them. You know, some of you, I know, remember what this used to be. This building is really important to the community of Barrio Logan and to the Chicano community in general. The old Chewy, and I know in the back they preserved some of. We can see some of the murals that have been preserved, and so I want to thank the whole Orion family, Harry, Tom, Carmile, your dad, for continuing to be a partner in the community. So thank you for doing that. So yeah, let's give it up for them. Here's a little. The agenda is going to be very brief, and then we really want to get to talking, and I want to hear from you. These coffees are about. So I'll introduce who my team is, the staff who works for all of you, and then we'll talk about what area do I represent, and then what my job is, because some people have no idea what an assembly member does, and I don't blame you, because we know the council, we know our mayor, sometimes know obviously the governor. And so I want to share with you how I interact, what my job is in all of that. And then we will talk about what my main role is, what I have been elected to do, which is to write laws for the state of California. I am a legislator. That's a Latin term for writing, legislar in Spanish. And I'll tell you how that happens. And then we will talk about what I've been able to pass as terms of laws, work that we've done, and then moving forward, priorities. Every 2 years, one thing that we get to do is decide whether we like the way things are going or we want to change them. And it's the job of people who are elected to represent you to respond to that. And if they don't, then you kick them out of office and somebody else gets the job. And that's what democracy is about. And then we'll have questions. All right. I like to share about who I am because some people know, some people don't know. And certainly it starts with family, and that's who's up there. That was the day that I went to Sacramento and I took the oath of office, which was June of 2022. I was elected in a special election. So my wife is a lifelong Logan Heights resident. She's an educator. I look up to her. She is currently volunteering her time at the PTA at her kids' school. That's where she's at right now. And those are my kids. My daughter's now in high school. My daughter's her first year of high school, and my son is a fifth grader, so he'll be in middle school pretty soon. My degree's in psychology. I never studied politics or didn't think I was going to work in politics or anything like that. I wanted to help my community. I wanted to help in our schools, and I thought that being a school psychologist would be a pathway to do that. So that's why I studied that. But then along the way, I got an opportunity to learn about government through a fellowship, and that's how I ended in the job and doing this work that I do now. But my degree is in psychology from San Diego State University. I was the city council member for this area from 2010 to 2018 when I termed out of office. And then I was not elected for 4 years. I was in the private sector. I started a small business, and that's what I was doing. So a couple years ago, I started a scholarship. In fact, this Friday at the Chicano Park Museum, a block and a half from here, we're having our celebration of our scholars. We'll be giving away 3 different scholarships, and so you can participate in that. That's open, also available to the public, celebrating Hispanic heritage. And in particular, what I celebrate is my family's immigrant story. My father, who came to this country with my mother, undocumented, and who worked really, really hard to try to give us a good life and seeking that American dream that we're so proud of in our country. And so I celebrate that by having scholarships for students who are the first in their family, like I was, to go to college. I tell you that because I also like to talk about what I do for fun. That picture was a year ago. Last Sunday, I have a neat picture of the last Sunday. I like to coach with my sons. He likes to play baseball at the YMCA, at the Jackie Robinson YMCA, and also Memorial. In fact, right now he's for the next season. But that's the stuff that I like to do. I love games. If you're worried about the score, they're winning 4-0. I just checked it as I was walking over here. 4 home runs, pretty good. So they're doing. I like to do that. I was at the game last night. They lost, but that's what I like to do: spending time with family, and I have a big family, and spending time with my kids. And lastly, yes, I was elected in 2022. Thank you. These are the people that work for all of you, and they help me. I don't say they work for me because they work for, just like I work for the people, they work for the people. Servants, and so we work for all of you. And if you were to call my office, these are the individuals who you could be talking to, because everybody answers the phone. And so from our chief of staff, who was Travis, who's my chief of staff when I was council for 8 years, so some of you might remember him from there. And then in Sacramento, I have Cynthia and Cleo, and I have in the middle of hiring an additional person to legislative work. And then here in San Diego, we have these individuals at the bottom, starting with Lisa and Chris and Mayra and Liliana and Katia, who's one of our great interns. We have a very, very robust internship program. If you have a young person who's in college, we want to know about them and hear about them, especially if they're from our community, because we want them to learn. We also had Carlo here earlier. I don't think he's gone. Oh, he's over there. He's a high schooler born and raised in Barrio Logan, also lives in now, and he was an intern in our office. All right. This is the area that I represent. It's 500,000 people, because there's 80 of us, like me, 80 assembly members, sit in the chambers at the Capitol and vote on the laws. And this is the area that I represent. Where we're at right now, which is basically the line at the very top, and then it goes to Sherman Heights, right? That's what goes to the 94 right there. And everything down to the border with Mexico, including the entire city of Chula Vista, the entire city of National City, the entire city of Imperial Beach, and the communities that you see listed here. By the way, we're missing Shelltown. I don't forget about Shelltown, but we're missing that. We represent Shelltown as well. And this is what my office does for all of you and is available to help in any way. Anything that is a state issue that you have questions about, we help you with your cases. If it's a DMV issue, if it's an employment development, unemployment issue, if it is a franchise tax board issue, if it's a Medi-Cal related issue, if it's related to corrections and rehabilitation, anything that is a state issue, that is the work that I do. It's probably a good point to also say, I am not anymore a city council member. I do not have the phone number to the people that fill potholes or who fix lights on our streets. That is the job of the city. We do, however, we don't tell you not to call us. We won't resolve it, but we will have our staff who works for you will help you connect depending on where you are, because every city is different. You can't call National City for a pothole that's in San Diego, right? And so we help you understand who do you need to call that issue resolved. And so I do want to acknowledge Councilmember Moreno's staff member, David Huerta, who is here, actually a former intern of mine, who's now working for the city. So if you have city issues, he would be a good contact for you. And here, so again, more of the services, and we have handouts, so you don't have to write this down about what we do. And then in the Capitol, the staff that works there, their job is to help me approve laws, or more importantly, to understand from you how you feel about an idea that's looking to become a law, what we call an assembly bill or a Senate bill. You call and you let us know because you heard about it in the news or whatever, and you say, well, we don't think this is a good idea, or you should change it this way or that way. And I'll give you some examples of that in a second. That's what our Capitol staff does. So now we're going to talk about, this is supposed to be the main part of my job, and the reason why you elect me, which is to decide what laws should become laws in California and what should not become a law. I write the laws and I vote on the laws that other people come up with. And this is how it happens. There's an idea that comes from the community. I'm going to give you an example right now of something. And then that then gets introduced and it becomes a bill. So if I introduce it, it becomes an assembly bill. If a senator introduces it, then it becomes a Senate bill. And then it gets a number just depending on when it gets introduced. That's the number that it gets assigned. That idea then goes to a committee of people who are elected from other parts of the state. And they decide whether that's a good enough idea for it to continue going down the process. If that does happen, then it goes for the whole body. The 80 of us have to vote. And if the majority of the 80, so 40 plus 1, 41 of us says yes to that idea, then it gets to go forward. And then the Senate takes that idea and then they go through committees that do the same thing. And if it passes both the Assembly and it passes the Senate, then it goes to the governor. That's the red trapezoid down there. And the governor has 30 days to decide whether that idea, that law that was written by one of us becomes a law or it doesn't become a law. He vetoes it and it doesn't become a law. And that happens January 1st of the next year. So at the end of the year, if you're listening to the news, they always like to say, oh, this is a new law starting January 1st. And that's because that's the way this process works. So if you go back one, please, Mayra, I do all these conversations with community all the time. I'll give you an example. This afternoon at 3 o'clock, it was a Zoom meeting with community members from all of South Bay, the South County Economic Development Group. And somebody there, at the end of the comments and question period, raised an issue. And he said, I'm very concerned that a state issue, the highways, so the highways are a responsibility of the state. The streets, the city. The highways, the state. I'm very concerned that people are speeding. Like I get on the freeway and everybody's going 80 to 90 all the time. And we should probably do something about that. And so my response to him was, interestingly enough, somebody had this idea this year. We had a senator, it was not my idea, we had a senator who introduced a law, I don't remember the number, but it was Senator Scott Wiener from the San Francisco area, where it got passed, it went through all that process, it is right now in the red. The governor will either sign this into law or not, but his bill, I thought was very creative, will require that all vehicles starting in 2027 or 2028, I don't remember the exact year, will have to have a system where if you're speeding above what the speed limit is, you will have an alarm go off. Kind of like when you get into the new cars and you don't put on a seatbelt and it just beeps and beeps until you do it. It's a similar requirement, which I thought, and I think that's a good idea. Now, how the process works is the companies that make the cars, every company, they're opposed. They're like, don't tell us what to put in the cars, right? Like, we built the cars, you don't tell us. That is where like the discussion and the debate happened. And in the end, we voted and we thought that it was a good idea to do it. We understand that there's concerns from audio manufacturers, and so we think we should give them enough time to do this. But at the end of the day, we think they should do this because it's going to make our community safer. So that's an example of an idea that could have started in the community and then became a law. I also have other laws that have started in the community that later became law, and we're going to see some of those right now. So I have 10 laws that are sitting in the governor's, like there are stacks of papers who are sitting on the governor's desk waiting for him to either sign or veto them into law. And I want to tell you a little bit what they are. These two, Assembly Bill 2501 and Assembly Bill 3227, are in response to what we saw happening, unfortunately, here with the storm events this year. And I'll tell you what it is, because it's the city for a long time said they couldn't clear out those channels. And if you, Martha will remember this from our days at City Hall, we kept pushing the city, you gotta go clean them out, you gotta go clean them out. If there's a rainstorm, people are gonna get flooded. We said it all the time. We were partially successful at Choyas Creek on the North Fork, which is National Avenue and 33rd. That part of Choyas Creek, we were able to get it cleared out pretty well. There still was damage, but unfortunately, the people who lived in South Crest, around the Beta and Acacia Street, that was not cleared out. And what the city kept complaining about is that they don't have the right, authority, and it's too cumbersome and it's too difficult, and they have to go get permits and get permission from all these agencies in the state, and it's too bureaucratic and it's too hard to do. So I said, okay, this will never happen again. I'm introducing a law where the city no longer has to go through the same process to clear out the channel. An exemption. Any concrete channel, and most of our channels around here are concrete, that are built to withstand what's called a 100-year storm, so a severe storm, can now be cleared out what is called in a ministerial way, not in a long drawn-out process, so that the city no longer has the excuse that they can't go clean them out because the state has some laws on the books. So this is to help make sure we prevent future catastrophes like the one we witnessed so many people have. So another idea of a law that came directly from what's happening here in San Diego. And that's what those bills are about, is about making that easier. Assembly Bill 2586, a very personal issue to me, to a lot of people in our community. The federal government has failed at passing immigration reform for 30 years now, since 1986. And I know that because my parents were here undocumented, and it wasn't until 1986 that they became legal residents. That's how they got their amnesty, 1986, and a lot of people, same thing. And so federal government hasn't done anything on this. They've talked about it, and they've just continued to fail. What's happened ever since is that families who have immigrated come with their children, who oftentimes are very young. They grow up, they go to school here, they then sacrifice and go to college. They get a college education, which we all think is a good thing, right? More college educated people is good. Well, these individuals who get college education are not able to be employed if they're undocumented, because they don't have a social security number, because the federal government hasn't accepted them. I want to remind you, people think DACA. Everybody thinks, well, don't they have DACA? Every young person has DACA and they're protected? No. That program ended in 2016 under the Trump administration. And so there are students that have not been able to renew and have that status, and there are students who never were able to apply. And so what this bill would do is it would allow those students who made that sacrifice, who went to college, who got a degree, to work in our universities. So they can use their skills, put them to use in some way, rather than go and work, under the table, the black market, and get mistreated as workers often do. Allow them to legally work in our universities and in our colleges in California. So that's another bill I'm very proud of, and we're working on, sitting at the governor's desk. Housing is a big issue. I'm gonna jump over these because I've spoken too long about that. This one is important, fentanyl education. Fentanyl, everybody talks about it. Yes, more deaths have been occurring. This one already signed by the governor, actually, so I'm very proud that the governor signed this already into law in July. And it would require students in high school who are taking their health education requirements to graduate to learn about the impacts of fentanyl and also how to prevent deaths by using what we have now deployed to all the campuses. Every school now has the, I always get the name wrong. Narcan, yes. That is a spray that they use to prevent the overdoses. So it's in all our schools now. We spent a bunch of money to put them out there. And so now it's going to be required because of this bill that every student understand how to use it. And also not just how to use it, but how to prevent yourself from being caught in that. One of the things I learned and I was worried about as a parent is that it's not that they're going out to the streets and saying, give me fentanyl. That's not what's really happening. It's that that product is finding its way into wrapped products, candies, things that kids just think are normal things. And they need to be aware that they're in danger if they don't know who is giving them whatever they're taking. So that's all part of this education curriculum. So starting years from now, if you graduate from high school, you're gonna have to be educated on this issue. So I'm very, very proud about that one as a parent. And then last one I'll talk about is Assembly Joint Resolution 12. We've all heard about the Tijuana River Valley. I can talk to you about exactly what the problems are, but this is definitely an issue that the federal government needs to address. And I can give you specifics about how it needs to be addressed. There's a whole plan. So it's not that we don't know how to fix this, by the way. This is really important. We know what it's going to take to fix it. It's, are we going to fund it and are we actually going to do it? And that's what this resolution is about. So I got the entire legislature, Republicans and Democrats from San Diego to Oregon to sign on, and we passed it, we approved it. And so we officially submitted it to the federal government, to the president, the vice president, and Congress, and saying, this is what you need to do. It's been 1,000+ days that Imperial Beach has been closed, by the way. You can't go into that water because it's contaminated, and we need to address this issue. And so from the state, that's what we're trying to do to make sure that the government does their part. $25 million to the library in Chula Vista, where we're going to start our first 4-year university education programs. Really excited about that. I think I have another slide. Cruising is not a crime, that we approved that last year. It was a great campaign. Came out of National City and the lowrider community because people prior to this law are able to be pulled over and to be ticketed, cited, vehicle impounded if they were driving too slow, which didn't make a ton of sense. And we got that signed last year by the governor. So moving forward, and this is where I'm going to end, and I want to give you all a chance to speak. I want you to know what my priorities are, and you've heard a little bit about it already. And there's two that, for me, if we don't do anything about these two, everything else kind of falls apart. And a lot of important things, I don't want to diminish everything else that's important. But if you do not have housing in California, that is a huge, huge problem. And it's become so incredibly unaffordable. I mean, the house that I bought a few blocks from here, 2008, so 16 years ago, I would not be able to live in it today. I mean, everything is just out of control in terms of expensive. So housing is a big issue. I've got a bunch of bills. I didn't want to put them all up there. And we're trying to make it easier to build housing, trying to build more affordable housing for low-income individuals, and something I care about a lot, middle-class families. Because there's a lot of programs, and I'm not saying that there's enough. There are programs that focus on low-income families, and that's good, and we should do that. But middle-class folks, like people who are graduating from college who have a degree, there are no programs to support those families and those kids. And so I'm trying to work on more legislation to be focused on low-income, middle-income, and people who maybe are not in those income. Maybe they're doing better, and good for you. They can't afford it either. It's become so expensive. And so when housing is affordable, you lose talent. People who could stay in our community and give back don't, because they're going to go somewhere else to live, because that's important. And the second thing is education. My parents never even had a first grade education. And I was lucky enough to attend our public university system and our public school system. And I believe that that is still one of the fundamental things that we can do for young people, is to make sure we have a high quality education, that we fund it appropriately, and that higher education also is affordable and attainable. And so I can, a lot of bills that I've worked on. I do serve as the chair of the committee in the assembly that's the budget for education, K through 12, all the way to college. And so I can tell you about all the things we've done, a lot of really good things, but there's more work to be done. Our kids are still not at level when it comes to reading and writing and math, so there's work to be done there. And so those are the two areas where I'm going to continue to focus. And then the major project, if it was like one thing that I'm trying to focus on that's a specific project, is to make sure that we have a 4-year university in the South Bay. Chula Vista has been planning this for decades. There's been a lot of people who have worked on this for a long time, but it's sort of like been important, and it's been kind of the hot item to talk about, and then it sort of just falls down. It is really my main focus. I have made it very clear. I've told people, when the governor called to congratulate me on my election, this is the one thing I mentioned to him: we have to invest in education, higher education, and this university in the South Bay. That's why I'm the chair of the committee that I chair, because I want to focus on that. And we hope that next fall, 2025, at that library site that is being built and will be open to the public, it's a very large building, we will have the first 4-year degrees being offered south of the 94 in San Diego County. And we hope that that's the beginning of a much larger 400-acre parcel that is publicly owned, that has been set aside for university purposes. That's the beginning of bringing a full campus so that our young people in southern San Diego County, from this community all the way to the south, have access to higher education, because unfortunately UCSD and San Diego State University have become very exclusive, very difficult to get into, and a lot of our families aren't able to get into those universities. So we have to provide them with options, because education is still the pathway into the middle class, and without that, you can't make it happen. So that's why these are the 3 priorities that I'm focused on, but always, and that's why we're here. We'll move on to the question and answer period. That's what this is about. I'm not aware of everything happening in the community. I represent 500,000 people, and every one of us lives in a corner of that area that I showed you where something is happening. So I want to know what is happening in the community and how perhaps we could either be of service, of help. I'll stop with this. A week ago, at Christ the King Church in the Stockton community that I also represent, I heard a very delicate story of someone who lives in Barrio, Logan, who went to that meeting, who, the young woman, I can share this, I believe, because she shared it publicly. She was a victim of human trafficking, and she shared all the details of it, and it was gut-wrenching to listen to. It was very, very difficult to listen to. And then her father spoke up after that, and he asked me, challenged me, and I'm glad he did. He said, can we work on making it even harder for people to traffic human beings, and make the laws be strict so that nobody thinks or considers doing this again to somebody else? So I said, absolutely. So we're going to work with them. We're going to talk about what we can do, and hopefully there'll be a bill that I introduce that is reflective of that family, because they represent something that is happening to a lot of people in our own community. And so that's what this is about. Hopefully out of this conversation, you've learned something, I'll learn something. Thank you very much, and we'll open it up. Oh, we don't have this listed, but I do want you to know about this, and we'll also get you pastries here that they were kind enough to give us as I do this. We have a couple of events. I told you this Friday at Chicano Park Museum at 5:30, Hispanic Heritage Celebration. Please join us if you can. This Saturday at Memorial Park, Bailando in the Barrio, that was put together in the community. And then we have a community legal clinic. From one of these meetings, I heard from people, and I did this when I was on the city council, and I'm so glad I'm able to do it again, that people need help with legal questions that they might have. It's not something that I do. We don't have lawyers in my office, and so we partnered with a university, and they're providing free legal services. So the next one, we had one at Guadalupe 4 or 5 months ago. We had one like 2 months ago. And then this one's now happening in San Isidro on Wednesday, October 16th, at Casa Familiar in San Isidro. And then at the Sherman Heights Community Center in November, we have our annual turkey distribution. So anybody who needs a meal, it's a complete meal. We do that for families in November. And then we're having a posada for our office, so you can actually come see where we all work. Here it's in Chula Vista, and it's on Friday, December 20th. There'll probably be more events that happen, but these are the ones that we are sponsoring, putting out for our community. Again, my job is to write laws and try to pass legislation, but we need to do things like this and these events because that's what our community needs and is asking of us, and that's how I'm trying to be responsive. So again, hopefully after this, or as a result of this, more good ideas will come about what we can do to make our community a better place. So with that, thank you very much, and I think we're gonna open up for questions. Oh, okay, some of you were very prepared. Thank you. I'm not gonna say the name. If you want to say it after I read your question, you let me know. Y es en español esta pregunta. Disculpa que no hablé en español toda la presentación, pero vivienda accesible es la pregunta. Me gusta esta pregunta. Lo he estado comentando mucho yo también. La oportunidad para que personas puedan comprar, ser dueños de su casa también. Esta es una de las cosas que más quiero hacer, y la verdad les digo, no he encontrado una buena solución. Este tiempo de aquí a enero, que es cuando se presentan los proyectos de ley, estoy bien enfocado en esta pregunta, porque estoy de acuerdo que sin la oportunidad de poder comprar, se pone muy difícil la situación para las familias. Sí tuvimos un programa el año pasado donde fueron más de 300 millones de dólares que otorgamos como el Estado para personas que van a ser primera vez en comprar su casa. Obviamente, como se imagina, ese dinero se terminó casi inmediatamente porque la necesidad es tan grande. Entonces, lo que yo estoy buscando, aparte de ayuda económica para poder comprar por primera vez, y tenemos, me estoy acordando, también otro evento que estamos planeando. Lisa, we're having a home ownership workshop, right? Okay. En enero, pues no venía en esa lista, tenemos porque también mucha gente lo ha dicho, tenemos un taller de personas que están interesadas en comprar su casa por primera vez. No les garantizo que va a haber dinero allí para que les ayude, pero queremos que la gente esté por lo menos preparada. Queremos tener recursos de consejería, de incitaciones financieras que no van a tratar de venderle algo, sino informarles de qué es lo que tienen que hacer si se quieren preparar para dar ese paso. So this question is a really good one. It's about home ownership, and it's one that's puzzled me and that I'm really worried about as well. It's something we're not doing enough. We did put $300+ million last year for first-time home ownership programs. That money, as you might imagine, went like within a week because everybody wanted to get support. I'm glad we did that, but clearly the need is more, and so I'm trying to find out more ways that we can incentivize it and make more first-time home ownership opportunities available. And Lisa in my office is organizing a home ownership workshop in January of next year to give people some tools and resources where you're not being sold anything by a private group or a bank or anything like that, but it's just information to get you prepared to perhaps be able to do that. So I would thank you for this question. I don't, like I said in Spanish, I don't have an answer to this one. It puzzles me still, but it's something that I'm hoping to work on a lot this fall and have some ideas. What is being done to promote low and zero emission transportation locally? What is being done to promote visibility in California and in District 80? So on low and zero emission, this is one that really I'm concerned about. So the most money that we spend on low and zero emission is in incentives to people to buy, for example, vehicles that are electric or that are low emission. That is a good thing to do, except if you live in this community, that means you have to have the infrastructure to plug in an electric vehicle. If you know anything about this community, we don't have garages. We don't have spaces to put in that big battery thing and then plug in your car. People often park on the streets. And so that is one of my criticisms. We will be renegotiating a very important thing. Don't want to get too technical here, but it's AB 32. It's the low emissions fuel standards, a program that the state approved. It will be renegotiated next year. And what I am doing and what I'm hoping to focus on is how do we get more dollars into communities like this one to support this infrastructure? Because without that financial support, our community can't afford it. Nobody can retrofit just the electrical in a home to put in a solar or whatever. That's like impossible to do in these homes that are, 100 years old and more. You can do it in a suburban community. You can do it in East Lake and Chula Vista, and I represent that area, and I'm glad we can do that, and we want to support them. But what about communities that don't have access? So that's something that we're focused on. How is the state combating the homeless crisis? Where are they going to put them? You tell me, where should we put them? I'll tell you, there's something we did last year, which I thought was a good step. It wasn't going to solve it all, but we passed something called Care Court. And I really was hopeful that this would actually do a lot. And I will acknowledge to you here, because I think we need to talk about things we do right and things we do wrong. It hasn't done a heck of a lot. Partially, and this is not about blaming, it has not been implemented in the County of San Diego, but we gave the County of San Diego the authority to do this, where there are just, a block from here, on this block alone, you will interact with people, and there are some people who need actual, real help, right? There's different levels of homelessness, and I was, for example, at the Lighthouse Rescue Mission in National City 2 weeks ago or less. They are helping people who are they're employed, but they just can't afford to live here. So they're helping them with resources. So we have those people, right? They're fully, I'm going to use the term, fully employed, function, if that's what you want to say, and they just can't afford it. We've got to do something on that end. And then there's the spectrum and a lot of different people with different circumstances. And there's people who need real help, who are under some substance, or there is a behavioral health, mental health issue. And that's what Care Court was about. We approved a law to allow court systems and counties to forcibly remove those people from the streets and require them to go get treatment. And I supported that law, and I know there are some people who feel very strongly that we should not force people to do anything, but I supported that law because I think there are instances in which you just have to do that. You have to be compassionate with others. Everybody has their own story. There's different reasons. People are living in cars. They just need a little help with the deposit to get into an apartment, things like that. We should do all that. But there are also people in the stories that I heard from a lot of you and people who I talked to when I was knocking on doors. Why can't we force people who need help to get help? That has not been implemented in San Diego County. The county has the authority to do that. It has not happened, and I don't have an answer as to why, but I do think that is part of the solution. Let's take a break and have you all talk.
They emphasize, getting the homeless into housing. You could put all the homeless in San Diego in housing, but they're still mentally ill, they're still drug addicts, or both. And yet I see nothing in the way of mental health. We have a 3-day stay down Rosecrans. After that, they're back on the street. Where are the mental hospitals? And we have wonderful programs, Salvation Army, a lot of other ones, but they don't have enough to take care of everybody. To me, before housing, we have to address their mental illness, and it's not being addressed at all.
I would agree, and that is perhaps, this is about acknowledging what we do well and we don't. As a state, many years ago, we decided to get rid of all mental institutions, right? Maybe it was the right thing to do. Maybe we were putting the wrong people in there and we were mistreating people. And what happens in politics sometimes is when you do something wrong, then you go completely the opposite and you say, we're just never going to do that. And so now I think we're trying to correct that. The state needs to play a role in mental health institutions so that we have the facilities, so that the county perhaps can initiate the Care Court and take those people who have that need for mental health to get the actual treatment that they need. So this is a place that I will hope to continue to be helpful in. as a state. I'd like to know why law enforcement only ignores public drug use. People are afraid to leave their apartments because of it. Well, again, that is why, care court, we gave the authority to the judicial system and to the police to remove those people if that's why they're homeless. Now, I don't want to say every homeless is a drug addict. That is absolutely not true, right? But in those instances, I think this is not referring to specifically homeless, but just generally. We do have a proposition on the ballot, and I cannot, because this is an official job of mine right now, I cannot politics with you, but there's something called Prop 36 on the ballot that you need to read and be aware of that is about criminal justice, and there are some people that are opposed. They want things to stay the same. There's some people that want it to be harsher and are supporting this. I think there are some elements of this proposition that could be helpful to resolving problems like this. I am also not saying that everybody who's a criminal is a drug addict. That is not what I'm trying to say, but I think there are elements of Proposition 36 that we all need to read, become informed about, and determine, because we get to decide now with propositions, whether we should change the law and make stricter penalties for people who are committing similar crimes time after time after time. Drug use is a crime that police officers will tell you. One of the reasons why they don't pursue them is because there is no real penalty associated with it. And so Prop 36 is an attempt to get to that. And again, I can't tell you which way to vote because that would be politics, but you should definitely read about it and understand what that means. Okay. Construct ADUs. I know a little bit about that. ¿Qué reglamentos hay? ¿Cuánto tamaño? Una pregunta muy buena. Gracias por hacerla sobre las adiciones pequeñas a las propiedades. This question is about ADUs, the accessory dwelling units, the small things you can build on your existing property, called granny flats oftentimes, something that I actually did myself, so I know quite a bit about. Asking about the rules and the size and how many. Depende de cuál el tamaño de su propiedad, y esa es una pregunta más específica para la ciudad de San Diego. Les dije anteriormente que yo no trabajo en la ciudad, pero si se comunica con nuestra oficina le podemos hacer llegar a la persona encargada de su comunidad para que le ayude a entender un poco más eso. Pero básicamente lo que sí sé es que el tamaño más grande que puede ser es de 1,200 pies cuadrados. Tiene que ser menor a ese tamaño. Pero si su lote, su parcela en donde usted vive, no permite esa magnitud, tiene que ser una unidad más pequeña. So, depende de dónde estemos y qué tipo de comunidad esté. Yes. Do you know about ADUs? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so the state, I'll just be very honest, the state decided a while ago to allow cities to allow ADUs as a minimum for every property. In a community where it's a multi-family property, so Logan Heights, which is what you said, you're on Harrison here, that whole area of Logan Heights, it's a multi-family zoned area, which means you can build apartment buildings. Even if there's a single family home today, by law, by what was approved by the city, I want to say now 10 years ago, and what's been the use there for 30, 40 years is even though if it's a single family home there today, you are actually allowed to build multi-story apartment buildings. Some people choose to, others don't. Because it's zoned that, I don't know the exact number, but you are allowed to build multiple units as accessory units to your existing structure as an addition or in the backyard in this multifamily housing area. In a single family housing area, you're allowed to build I think it might be just one, but you have to allow just one. So because that area is zoned differently, and decision gets made by your city council and your mayor, and it happens every time there's a plan update, and that's a very long process that will probably come again in 10, 15 years. But for now, the time being, those are the rules here in the city. I only know that because I work there, and I happen to know that, but for this community, because I represented this community. But every community is different. Okay, I think this is the last one. CIP funds for the rec centers. Okay, so this person knows a lot about city government as well. CIP stands for Capital Improvement Program. When the city wants to do something, like for example, this Barrio Logan sign. When I was on the city council, this was a sign that we helped identify. We created a project, it's called the Capital Improvement Project. We found funding to get it built, and that's how that got built. The Chicano Park Museum has a CIP to help improve the HVAC system and all these things to make the building usable. In order for anything to happen in the city, you have to be a CIP. If you're not a CIP, meaning you're not identified literally line item in the budget in the city, that project will never happen. You have, something you want to see happen in the community. If it's not there, it's not happening. Then once it's there, then you got to get money to build it. So this is about Southeast. I'm trying to think Southeast in general. So one of the things, the way you get money to do that, either you get money from the state sometimes sends money, and we've done that. We sent money to the Chicano Park Museum to do the improvements at Chicano Park. We got $2.5 million for lights at Memorial Park, different projects. Sometimes you get money from the state, but it's really a city responsibility. And how do they get money? They get money when people build. Actually, when you build something, even if an ADU, you pay a fee to build that goes to the city. And they use those fees to build things in the community. And then the city council decides, okay, we've got this money, where do we want to put it first? Which project do we want to prioritize? And that's how that works. And I am not familiar with what is remaining for the Southeast plan, but I'm sure there's plans to do a lot of things, and there's more money that's needed. I did read about this. Again, it wasn't while I was on city council, it's just from me reading the newspaper, that the city passed a new way of collecting fees from other parts of the city, which is, I think this is a good thing, from other parts, like La Jolla and Carmel Valley, that don't really need more amenities because they've got a lot of parks and recreation centers, and that the city now is using some of the dollars from those areas to help build projects in this area. I think that was led by Council President Elo Rivera and Councilmember Moreno, and Councilmember Monica Montgomery were very, very adamant about doing that. And I think that's a good thing for our community, but I don't know in this case of this project how much is left. So, all right, now if you have a question and you didn't get it in, or a comment, I take comments as well. I'd love to hear from you. So, should I pass the mic? Yeah.
All right, my question was about the homeless one. I kind of got put in a little late. Okay. I noticed a lot of the homeless try to go to the library, try to go to local resources, try to go to local businesses, use the internet to do other things. They're not being treated very well by the local businesses. They're being kicked out of the public libraries, trying to get resumes. I wonder how you plan on fixing that or helping it out.
Thank you. So first and foremost, public spaces are public spaces no matter who you are, right? So kicking out of public libraries is not appropriate. I don't know what behavior is being cited as to why that's happening, but you're not allowed to be kicked out from public spaces. The city, again, these are all city issues. These are not things that I oversee or in my purview, but I know that they passed an ordinance about sidewalks and sleeping in tents, and that's no longer allowed. You have to go to a shelter location. But I hear your point, and so I was at the rescue mission. I don't know if you were here when I said that. There's one in downtown, but there's also one in National City now for all of South Bay. And it's a really great resource for individuals who have self-identified that they want some assistance. Some shelter, yes, for a period of time, but they are assigned case managers. They are provided with assistance that are completely wraparound services. Healthcare, they help them apply for food stamps if they qualify. So there are some good, I believe, programs that are out there that are looking to help homeless, like, at least get on their feet, so that then they continue to pursue. They have job, support services there. I don't have a list of all the people who do that, all the organizations, because it's, again, not something as my day-to-day, but we can certainly get you more information about that. As far as me passing a law, I'd be interested in hearing, like, what a law to do what, right? Because I've thought about this a lot, and there's not one thing you could legislate to fix the problem. I think it's, as I said earlier, there's people in different stages who are dealing with being unsheltered, and they need supports in different stages in different ways. And I think the best thing we can do is we can support more of that. And one thing we've done is literally, we have sent from the state, I think it's now $1.5 billion, with a B, $billion to the state to help with getting hotels so people can have shelter, with all sorts of things. I think you'll continue to see some of that, but we also want to see results now, because the count is increasing, it's not decreasing. And so I think you'll see more of that from the state. That's what I will be doing, that's what we will be doing, is how are we actually helping people get off the street, not just sending money to put you into a tent somewhere. Follow up, sure.
I would like to see on the other half, if someone applies for an LLC or applies for their sole proprietorship or another business, part of the education getting that license would be how to treat the people on the streets. So they know how to treat them, so they feel better about going to the resources.
Oh, very interesting. We just had a gentleman, he's not here anymore, with the Logan Heights CDC. And if we're talking about our own community, I think that's a good resource. We also, one thing, did I mention the small business event we're having? I don't think I did. Next week, right? With Councilmember Moreno at Barrio Station. There's a small business event happening. You sign up, you'll get all the information. But it's a good point. You're welcome to come. It's a public event, and talk to small businesses about how they can play a role in helping solve this problem. Appreciate your comments. I will also stick around if you don't feel like you want to raise your hand and talk and say it out loud. Happy to stick around and talk to you. But yes.
So all the, like you said, you address the state issues, so all the issues actually that affect this community at a community level to be addressed to Vivian Moreno in her office?
So if it's a city-related issue, that is correct, right? Tell me. Yes.
Lighting, like
Yeah.
the dirt alleys that are unpaved.
Yes.
The lack of sewer infrastructure.
Correct.
That doesn't flood when it rains, not just the creeks and the canals, but the actual streets.
The drainage. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Those are all city issues. Yeah. But you can still contact us, and we'll help you make sure you know who to talk to.
It's like how, to get notified of the council meetings or where they hold.
Again, the best way, I was a council member before, it's to connect with your council representative, and then you'll probably get added to a list. And there's community meetings. I don't know what neighborhood you live in, but there's a Southeast Planning Group. There's the Barrio Logan Community Planning Group. I don't know, there's a lot. I know Martha used to work in my office. She used to go to all of them, so she probably knows them better than me. But those meetings happen, and that's where you can connect with people that way. There's a captain's advisory meeting with the police department. There's a bunch of meetings.
My second question is kind of piggybacking on the clean air emissions or whatever. So I have read a report, I don't know if the air quality in this neighborhood is a city issue or state issue, but supposedly we have this Logan Heights area.
You are correct.
We have the worst air quality, the highest rates of asthma, respiratory illnesses, and
Mhm.
children. And I mean, if you can see, we don't really have a lot of trees or
Yeah.
what are we doing about the air quality?
This is a great question. Thank you. You know, I'm born and raised in this neighborhood. I suffer from asthma. I have respiratory issues. And there's two main problems that have contributed to that, in my opinion. We, for a long time, and this is not anything against the Port of San Diego, but they weren't a great neighbor to us in this community. Things have changed. They are becoming better. They are becoming more of a partner. I actually had a bill that we will bring back next year to make sure they forever continue to be a good partner and invest in things in our community. And I can give you details about that. But we also had a highway system. You know, the traffic that comes through this community that's contributing to the air quality. We have a different thing I didn't even talk about that is a very long-term dream for a lot of people in this community, and that's to help reconnect what used to be, this all used to be a Logan Heights community before the freeway came in. And part of what we're thinking about is how do we build, like on the 15, if you ever go under the tunnel, it's not a tunnel, it's a cap. There's a freeway cap and there's a park above it. And I've been doing a bunch of work on this. We'll have a full report coming out soon. Had hearings in Sacramento about reconnecting communities and how do we invest our dollars now as a state to cap freeways, capture emissions, create park space. And so that's one thing we're doing. The port issue is another, but you were very specific, so I want to answer on what's called an urban canopy, tree canopy. That is the phrase that gets used. We have put in, and I can get you the figures, a lot of money, and there are groups like Urban Core, who I know is contracted to help go and put out trees. We need participation from property owners though, because you can plant a tree, but if you don't water it, it'll die. And we've seen it happen.
I know
SDG&E is doing, we're required, so that's something the state requires them as part of their help their part to help us on the emissions issues. They're required to offer trees. So we have a lot of work to do in that regard in making sure that we have a canopy that is going to help keep temperatures low, to purify our air. There's so many benefits to trees that I think we underestimate how much that means and how valuable that is. So appreciate you caring about that. Okay, I don't want to keep anybody do you want to say it out loud or you want to talk one-on-one?
No, I can say that.
All right.
My question is on the home ownership.
Yeah.
Is there anything that can be done state level with low income, medium being forgotten, to raise that level of the cost of living?
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Make the low income a little higher.
Oh, yes, okay. I don't have an answer for you, so I'll look into it. But it's something that I've thought about before because San Diego is more expensive than like the Central Valley, Fresno, Imperial County. And I'm not sure what we do on regionalizing what low income is in that way or if we do it statewide. I'll have to get back to you on that, but certainly I'll look into that to make sure that I agree with you, right? San Diego is a high cost of living area. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, appreciate you saying that, and I think you're right. Like we need to understand how we can maybe address that issue so that you could qualify for those programs, right? For first-time home ownership. Right, exactly. I totally poor. Yes, that's right. All right. So we're gonna stop here. We have, please join us for pastries. Again, thanks to Ryan Brothers, and obviously, please support our local businesses, right? That's how our economy will thrive. They hire people from our community, right? They invest, they donate to things that happen in our neighborhood. I know that the Ryan family has served, for example, on the Barrio Logan Maintenance Assessment District, which helps keep beautiful, Barrio Logan and things like that. So support our local businesses. And once again, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you. And I'll be around for more comments and questions. Thank you.
Yeah.